And we just love your pastors. We do, we do. We love their heart. We love the culture that they're creating right here. It's so evident, so powerful. It's conducive, and you can feel the baptism of this culture. So we just appreciate their heart, their friendship. That means more to Ginger and I than anything, is to build relationally, to build friends, because then great things happen in the future. Things don't happen over. It's not a microwave Christianity. Things happen because you walk with people and you spend time with people and you just hang out with people. And over the years, great fruit is the result of that. So we're so thankful we have so many friends here at C3 here in Lawrenceville, in Atlanta. You know, I look at Eric and Kim and hanging out with them and just the friendships we've developed. Of course, Donna and Jim's at the Falcon game. We won't hold that against him, but he's at the Falcon game. But Donna, I don't know if you realize, you probably don't even know she's my sister. But you didn't know that. Yeah, and I often tell her, I said, you know, you're an absolute walking miracle, because you've come from the most ignorant state and the most unhealthy state, Tupelo, Mississippi. I mean, and you're a miracle. It's a miracle that you've gotten this far. But anyhow, it's just fantastic to be here. Matt and Sarah, where's Matt? Anyhow, he left already. You're tired of me hitting him in the first service, but fantastic. Hey, real quickly, you know, how many love inspiration? I do. I need to be inspired all the time. I love things that inspire me. You know, the word inspiration comes from inspirited. The word enthusiasm comes from God in you, and so on. But we put out every single Monday a thought transformer. That's what we called it. Based on Romans chapter 12, verse 2, God will transform your life by changing the way you think. And it comes out free. If you want that, you just go to our website, robcarman.com. That's all it is. Put in there your email, you get it. And it also has a free download that comes with it. So it's a short story. You can read about 2 or 3 minutes. They're all good stories that I put together, so I know they're good. But you'll like it. If you want that, get that. You can spell my name right. You can spell it wrong. We bought all the domains and so on and so forth. Anyhow, well, praise God. Real quickly, I want my wife to stand up, because we've been married 40 years. For Ginger, 40 years. 2 kids. She is the grandmother of 5 children. We have 5 grandkids. You couldn't believe that. She doesn't look over 35. That's amazing. That's true. Look at her. And so we just have a brand new one. Name is Dominic Robert. He was just born about 2 weeks old. Little guy, 5-pounder. We want to switch the name. I'd rather go Robert Dominic, you know, but couldn't talk my kids into it. How many got their Bibles? Got your Bible, iPhone, iPad, smartphone, whatever the case might be. Hold it up. Hold it up. Wave it around. Make the devil mad. He hates Bibles. I want you to find Luke's Gospel if you can. Luke's Gospel, chapter 6. Luke's Gospel, I'm going to read this in just a moment. However, before I read it, I want to preface my remarks real quickly with just a few thoughts, because I think it's important. When we read the stories in the Bible, often we just read them historically. We actually know this story happened 2,000 years ago. It's a real story. It happened to a real person in a real setting. And that's fantastic. But if the only way we read the Bible is in that light, it has very little ability to speak to us, to affect us emotionally, eternally, spiritually, and so on. It's only when in the reading of the story that we begin to recognize that that story, yes, it happened, but it's happening. And it's a story about us. It's not just a story about somebody else. It's actually our story. And the moment we allow our minds to gravitate to the fact that this is our story, that story at that moment has the ability to talk. God then will take that story and he'll start to hone that thing in on particular areas of our own life. That's when the Bible becomes transformable within a person's life. That's when all of a sudden something hits us and chisels something out of us and affects us. And we think, my God, I needed that. And up until that time, it seldom will happen. So as we read the story, we want to begin to see ourselves inside of the story. It happened, it's happening. The Bible's a living thing. You and I are always, our life is fluid, which simply means that from one day to the next, our emotions are slightly different. Our perspective of the world's different. Things happen, things change. We're never in the same place in life. And because of that, God's word always has the ability to hit those areas of our life that are being exposed at that moment and deal with them. That's why it's so powerful. That's why you can go back over and over and over. Wayne Myers, the old preacher from Mexico that literally became the icon of Mexico, saved on the USS Enterprise in World War II, fighting the Japanese when a 500-pound armor-piercing bomb fell out of a Japanese fighter plane, bounced off the flight deck of the USS Enterprise and landed in the ocean. The only aircraft carrier in World War II that was never sunk was the USS Enterprise. He served on that for 18 months, got saved on that flight deck. God sent him to Mexico. He built over 5,000 churches, started a movement called Amistad Cristiana, changed Mexico from 2% evangelical Christian to 12% in his lifetime. Amazing guy, still alive, 98 years old today, preaches 4 times a week at 98. Amazing individual, full of energy, full of strength. Told me, he said, son, never feel bad in preaching the same message over and over because people are never in the same place. Never feel bad of reading the same stories over and over because you're never in the same place. God's word and his mercies are new every morning. The same thought you read today, you read it tomorrow, it'll affect you different. So never be concerned. You read the same verse over and over again. Go to the same passages over and over. They'll speak every day if we'll allow them. Luke chapter 6, verse 6. Here's the story. It says, now it happened on another Sabbath also that he entered, talking about Jesus, into the synagogue and taught. A man was there whose right hand was withered. So the scribes, Pharisees watched him closely whether he would heal on the Sabbath that they might find an accusation against him. He knew their thoughts and said unto the man with a withered hand, arise, stand here. He arose and stood. Jesus said to them, I'll ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or evil, to save or to destroy? And when he had looked around at them all, he said to the man, stretch out your hand. He did so, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. I love the story. I know there's massive amounts of things in this story, but I'm drawn to 3 main things every time I look at the story. The first thing I'm always drawn to is something about the very character of Jesus himself. And that's that Jesus never spoke to crowds, he spoke to people. We might be a crowd, we might be a congregation this morning, but we're actually individuals in our own right. We have our own struggles, our own difficulties, and God will always speak to us personally. He'll single us out. He knows exactly where we are, exactly what we're facing, exactly what we need, and he'll find us. He'll hone in on us. Never forget that. All the great miracles we read in the 4 Gospels, you recognize they always happened to individuals. They weren't miracles in a crowd. They were people with hurts, with struggles, with difficulties. And Jesus took time and went to them, or they came to him, and all of creation stopped at that moment as Jesus dealt with that one individual. It's such a story in itself. Here's a guy in a crowd whose hand was withered. And I love the fact the Bible said his right hand. It calls our attention to which hand. It didn't have to, but it does, because it's symbolic. The right hand has always historically and biblically been a symbolic hand. It's the hand of influence. It's the hand of power. It's the hand of authority. When Jesus was raised from the dead, he was seated at the right hand of majesty on high. When we shake, we stretch out our right hand. When we receive people into a relationship or the fellowship of a church, historically, they would say we're extending the right hand of fellowship. The right hand is so powerful. And the Bible said here was a man Here was you and I whose right hand was withered. Didn't say it was gone, it was just withered. It was just withered. We always find in our life that there's areas that are withered. Could be a withered relationship. Could be a friendship. Could be somebody close that they're not close any longer. It's withered. Could be our own health, our own energy, our own vitality, our own influence. It's not where it used to be. But to be honest with all of us, and if we were honest, we would all say all of us have to some degree a withering somewhere in our life. See, the first thing we recognize in this story is that it's not bad to have a handicap. It's not bad to have a problem. It's not bad to be going through something. It's only becomes bad in us when it's unrecognizable. So Jesus recognized it. He called attention to it. If I don't call attention, if I don't let God call attention to my difficulties, if there's no calling attention to my struggles, then I'm going to assume that I don't need anybody. I won't seek out help. I won't involve myself in the community of a church. I'll live around the unholy trinity, which is me, myself, and I. I'll spend my life hiding from others, and I'll just cover this thing up through guilt and shame, and it will never come out. It'll never get any better. It'll just fester on the inside of me and be to my detriment. I love the fact that Jesus called the guy out. Sometimes in life we've got to stand and we got to recognize that's me. I need help. I can't get help until there's an admission that I need help. I can't get past something until my heart becomes open. I can sometimes open my heart to God. I can do it, but I have to be able to open my heart to another human being. And the moment I do that, that's why the Bible said, pray for one another. Confess your faults, your sins to one another. Pray for one another that you may be healed. It takes humility to bear my heart to a human being. But it's a powerful thing. That's why God always puts us in the context of community, never individualism. But community, you can't read the book of Acts without community. They were always doing life together. They were involved. Their hearts were open. Things were happening. A transformable life cannot happen by yourself. It can only happen with others because you and I cannot see us. It takes others to see me. I can see part of me, but I can't see me. I'm blinded to my own faults. I become blinded to my own sin. I become blinded to my own shortcomings. Everybody that lives by themselves thinks they're perfect until they get around other people and they find out they're not perfect. So he calls something out, and that's what we need in our life. We need things called out. We need to recognize, we need to look and say, I need some help in this thing. I'm dragging, something's happening. I'm hurt on the inside. Jesus is calling attention to those things. Are you with me so far? And it's not all bad. When he does that, all of a sudden a door opens, the light comes on. We get around people, we go out, we have a meal, we hang out at somebody's house. I love what Pastor Jeff and Sonny were sharing the other day about when they came to this church. It was over Tim and Kay's house every week. That changes people. All of a sudden, you're not a stranger, you're a family. When you know you're a family, when you can open up the refrigerator and take anything out of it that you want. When you're a guest, it's different. When you're a family, you carry your own luggage. When you're a family, you dump the stuff in the closet. When you're family, you kick your shoes off. When you're family, you put on your pajamas at night because you don't care any longer because you feel a part of something. That's what church is. And it doesn't happen in isolation. We're not here just to look at the back of somebody's head. We're here to congregate, to be infused with life, and then go out and spread that life and infuse that life through community in the life of somebody else. Everybody wants somebody. Nobody wants to live by themselves. And so I'm going overboard on this thing. But listen to me. He penetrated this. It's so powerful. This guy's in a crowd, but all of a sudden in the crowd, Jesus puts a spotlight. Something begins to happen to his heart. He finds out life. He's been living with a withered hand. He's been living with the withered relationships, withered strength, withering on the inside. That's a lot of us right now. There might be a withering, so what do? The second thing Jesus did, he looked at him and he said, get up and stand up. I love the thought. The thought's powerful. Because the tendency in difficulty is to create introspection. And introspection is only good to a small degree. Introspection means I keep on thinking, well, what's wrong, what's going on, what's wrong. The more you introspect, you can only introspect if you're by yourself. And the more you introspect, I promise you, you'll find stuff. You dig deep enough, you'll find you'll uncover things you never knew you had. You'll get worse. You dig long enough into the soul of your life, you will unearth things that you don't even want to unearth. See, introspection has a tendency to enlarge failure patterns. And it also distorts reality. It changes it. I need somebody else to help me put reality into perspective. I don't need distortion of reality. There's a guy in the Old Testament by the name of Elijah, a prophet. He was all by himself. And being all by himself, he began to introspect, and he distorted reality to such a degree, he told God, I'm the only guy left that's never bowed my knee to Baal. And God said, time out. You've been by yourself too long. I got 7,000 that you never hung out with out there that's never done what you've done. See, it distorted reality. That's why you can't live with you. Because I'll distort the reality of my own life. Sin gets small. Never mind. But anyhow, so Jesus looked at this guy and he said, stand up, get up, stand. In other words, rise above it. You've been hurt, we've been hurt. You're only hurt by the people that are closest to you. Everybody's been hurt. Everybody's been through things. Everybody's had some scars, some tissues, some difficulties, struggle. You can't go through life unscathed. It's part of life. It's not all that bad. It's just part of living. But what do you do with it? Sometimes you got to get up and you got to rise above it. You got to cut the umbilical cord of yesterday. I can't live my life feeding my past. I can't change what happened. I cannot change it. I wish I could sometime. I remember the first time Ginger and I were married like a month. And we went to a marriage seminar. And the guy had been married 13 years. I thought it was an eternity. And I remember the guy, we're sitting in there with the crowd, and the guy said, my wife and I have been married 13 years, and we've never had one argument. I told Ginger, I said, we're out of here. We're out of here. That's not real. Come on, I can't get married 13 minutes without an argument. You can't be married 13 years. What are you married to? She doesn't talk. She's not even a woman. You can't. It won't happen. I can't listen to that. I can't follow that guy. I can't get anything out of that. I forget how I even got on that thought. I'm lost right now. Where was I? Stand up and get up. Yeah, you got to get up. Yeah. I'm trying to think. But so many times, I watch people nowadays. I watch people nowadays sometimes, and I know. See, people, if you can, there's always regret in life. There's always regret. And nobody's perfect. If I could go in the past and change things I did, would I do it? Well, of course. Of course. But I got to come to the conclusion, there's no time machine. I can't go back. I can't right or wrong. I can't change yesterday, last year, 10 years, 20. I can't. So I have to cut the umbilical cord of that thing poisoning me today. And I got to look at life, let the dead bury the dead, and say, I can't change what happened, but I can sure enough do something today, because God only gives life in days, not years, months, or weeks. I plan for my future, but I can only live today. And when I live for today, I say, this is the day God made. I'm going to do something. And God says, I've been waiting for that, because now I'm going to take the material of today and I'm going to construct your tomorrow. So I want to give God the best material. I can do something right now, but I'm not going to live on a rotisserie of what it could have been, should have been, or might have been. So Jesus looked at this guy who's probably was nursing his withered hand, and he said, get up and stand up. I've done a lot of men's conferences. The month of October, I did 4 of them in a row. And I'm thinking, and I saw a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys, I watch a lot of men in America today, and they cry too much. Too much estrogen. There's just too much estrogen going around. And I watch the TV, and I see all the guys crying. I can't imagine Dave coming up here and just crying all the time. Now, I do believe a man can cry, but some of these guys crying over everything now. And I'm thinking, get up and stand up. Well, I did, yeah, but you don't understand that. Okay, I don't, but get up and stand up. Rise above it. Otherwise, you're going to live this way all your life. We can't live blaming a dad, blaming whatever. They might not have been the perfect parent, but I have today. I gotta get over this thing. I gotta rise above it. There's a life. People depend on you. Rise above it. There's children. There's a wife, a husband, a future. Rise above it. Start your own legacy. 1964, a 9-year-old girl in Columbia, South Carolina, in South America, wrote a letter. She wrote a letter. She put it in an envelope. She put no stamp on the envelope. No stamp. She put no address. She wrote something on the envelope, but there was no address. And she mailed it. 5 days later, that letter arrived at 28 Highgate Park, London. A secretary opened it up. She looked at it. She handed it to a 90-year-old man. He looked at it and grinned. The outside of the letter simply said this: to the greatest man in the world. That 90-year-old man's name was Winston Churchill. Now, what most people don't know is the backstory. See, sometimes we read of a Churchill, and I love Churchill. I love movies about Churchill, books about Churchill. And we think, wow. But his father, which nobody knew until the latter end of his life, had a brain disease. And it distorted his thinking so much that when young Winston was born, his father hated him from birth. To say that his father disliked him would be saying it easy. His father hated his son. He would never look at him. He considered him mentally retarded and told him so. Could you imagine as a man, as a boy growing up with a father, the hero of your life that would never give you eye contact, that lets you know that he hated you, that would never look at you, never spend time. When he was as young as he possibly could, Randolph Churchill sent him to boarding school and never once visited his son. Neither did his mother. Sir Randolph was a member of Parliament. He was recognized as a very important man in Great Britain. He would be in the same town that his son was sitting in a boarding school during the day and crying himself to sleep at night long. He would write letters to his father, and he would beg his father to come see him. He would be in the same town. All he had to do was walk across the street, and he would never do it. He never saw him. He stayed in that boarding school till he was 18. At the age of 20, his father spoke to him. He was actually excited, the story goes, because he thought he was gaining the attention of his father when his father said, "You need to join the army because you're too stupid to do anything else with your life." That's the backstory. But somewhere, I don't know how, the story doesn't really tell you, but somewhere in the heart and in the mind and in the life of Winston Churchill, he rose above it. Instead of being controlled, he could have been a bitter man. He could have been a man filled with hate, and he would have spread that hate to his children. He could have been a man that cursed the day his father was born, that lived all of his life with hatred and bitterness towards the man that would never give him eye contact. But somewhere he rose above it to the degree that when his son was born, he named his son after his father. What a story. A man that rose above bitterness, rose above things in life. You and I will never overcome the witherness of our life until we rise above the difficulties of our life. Till we rise above the bitterness, the hate, the unforgiveness, the prejudice, the past, whatever it might be, we have to internally say, that's it, God, I'm cutting the umbrella. I'm not going to let this thing govern my life. If I need to open my heart to another human being to get it out, so be it. If I need to bare my heart and fall on my face before God on the altar of a church, so be it. If I need to hang out and confess this thing 1,000 times until I'm finally free from it, so be it. But I'm determined to rise above this thing in my life. My God, there's a future for me to live in, a legacy for me to plant, and people for me to impact. And I'm not going to poison somebody else with the poison that somebody else put in me. I'm going to get this thing, I'm going to lance this wound, get this thing out, and get healed. That's important. It's vital. That's why we need each other. That's why we need community. That's why we have to, listen, we'll know that the past no longer controls us when in our memory it comes up and the pain is no longer there. We're free. As long as the pain keeps resurfacing, it's still got us. But when that memory comes back, and the memories will always come back, but when the memory of the past comes back, but it's we no longer feel the emotional pain of it, we're free. We're free. What a great, we rise above it. The last thing he told them, which I love, Jesus, get up, stand up. And then he said, stretch out your hand. That's the way we were made. This is such a picture of life. Stretch out. God's done something for you. God's healed you. God's forgiven you. God's delivered you. Can't keep it to yourself. You can't do it. You'll never experience the full realm of freedom by hanging on to the miracle that God did for you. You got to help somebody. You got to stretch. You got to lift somebody, touch somebody, reach somebody. Give it away. Stretch out your. That's in the miracle. The full miracle only happened when he stretched. The full miracle only happens. We got to find something, all of us in life, all of us. That's why church is the most powerful community on earth is church, because it's already here. You find something outside of yourself, bigger than yourself, that makes you forget yourself so you can give yourself. I'll never give myself until I forget myself. If I'm hanging on to me, I'll never give me. I got to forget me to give me. And the only way to forget me, to give me, is to find something outside of myself, bigger than myself. It's all around us. It's right here. And I think there's nothing, our military in America used to say, they sure still say it, there's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. That's why America created a volunteer army, not a paid army. The reason why we did not create a giant paid army like other countries do, but we built this country on volunteerism, is because the people would have their allegiance to the people and the community and not to a government. Because if the government goes rogue, my allegiance is to help people and defend people. Our allegiance is to love people, defend people, help people, reach people, save people. We have an allegiance to the King, and that's why we go out with our allegiance to people, because that's his command. Are you with me? Are you with me? It's powerful, powerful. And so we got to stretch. In the 1600s, Great Britain had a great military and political leader by the name of Oliver Cromwell. During that period of time when Cromwell was the political and military giant in the nation of Great Britain, something happened. They had run out of currency. Now, without currency, currency, you can't have an economy. So it was a disaster. At that particular time, all currency came from silver. So they told Cromwell the problem. They said, we have no currency. He said, well, find silver. That's the problem. There is no silver. Without silver, you can't have currency. Without currency, you can't have commerce. You can't have, what did I say? Economy. Yeah. So, Cromwell said, find the silver. So they went in search of silver. And they finally went to the cathedrals, the churches. And inside the cathedrals, they found the silver. It was in the statues of the saints. All these big statues, it was choice silver sitting in the cathedrals. They came back to Cromwell. They said, we found the silver. We found silver. We can now create currency. We can create an economy. He said, where is it? He said, it's in the statues of the saints in the churches. And Cromwell looked at him. You want to know what he said? Do you want to know what he said? Yes. Do you want to know what he said? Yes. See, preaching is like eating. You never want to feed people that aren't hungry, but you want them drooling. It's like eating barbecue. You need a wet towel and a dry one because it runs down your face to the glory of God. Do you want to know what Cromwell said? I'm going to tell you. I love it. He said, go to the cathedrals and melt down the saints and put them into circulation. Oh, go to the cathedrals, go to the churches and melt down the saints and put them into circulation. It's time, church, to get melted down. It's time to create currency with our life. It's time to go out and put us back into circulation. We do no good as statues in the church, but when we get out of the church and we're melted down and we're put into currency, then the economy of a city begins to shift. Stand up with me. Stand.